show a contrast between a thing of nature and a constructed name or identity.
For I Stones, when she had asked me to make a piece in response to one of the poems, I chose The Broken Notebook, and one of the phrases that came out to me was, for who and what do we pray?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Anya Rouse of Just Vision.
Lovely to be here at tonight's beautiful event. Thank you so much to Elana for so graciously inviting us to be here. We're just very, very grateful and happy to connect with all of you. Just Vision is an organization that generates awareness and support for Palestinians and Israelis that are working through nonviolent means to end the occupation and resolve the conflict. Our organization emerged at the height of the Second Intifada in 2003. And what we were seeing was that the media was covering the conflict, but the stories that they were presenting on were primarily on violence and extremism, and the work that was happening on the ground, constructive alternatives to those were not getting covered. So we decided to start an organization, use films and other multimedia tools to travel around Palestinian, Israeli, and U.S. societies to shed light on their powerful stories, lift up their models, and share them, and build action and greater support and recognition for their work.
In this work, which you'll see tonight, Elana has collaborated with dancers of Scapegoat Garden and the percussive artistry of Katie Down under the genius direction of Annie Levy. This piece has been funded by the Brooklyn Arts Council and will be performed in the fall in local Jewish and Muslim community centers. Our hope here is that the work will be experienced and enjoyed across the country and hopefully internationally. If you are interested in bringing this work to your venue, we encourage you to look up the contact information which can be found in your program. Please keep in mind too that this is a work in progress. You will hear the characters' names spoken, but please also check in the program for characters and references.
When I ache, it takes the shape of a well. And when I bleed, I emit a scent something like a sheep in heat. Like dirt after rain. Like a patch of small, white flowers. Too wild to name. Is a very narrow bridge, very narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge. The whole entire world is a very narrow bridge. A very narrow bridge.
So one of the questions that you explore in your work in I Stones is the question of how two narratives can live in one body. I'd love it if you would discuss a little bit the nature of those narratives for you. Talk a little bit about your coming to terms with their coexistence.
Saying come to terms is an interesting phrase because they actually live in me and they fight in me and they hug in me and they're there and they're very alive. And they don't feel resolved, they feel like they're in a constant conversation and back and forth.
I'm very interested in the original conceptualization of this piece. how that came to be and where you went with that. From the time you first got the inspiration.
I really wanted it to have this life, and I knew actually, but again, before it was actually a book, before it was, I mean, it was a manuscript, but before it was a book, I knew that I wanted Deb and another dancer to be in it. I didn't know Jen yet, but I wanted, because for me, they embody the physical embodiment of those two narratives. So I kind of did some research, and but then once it comes through your filter, then it's sort of, it's like no longer Arafat really speaking, it's like me speaking, you know, through the Arafat filter. But so in that way, it became embodied for me.
If something happens, what have I done? You know that poem? I wonder, have you worked that out, or will there be more poems? Because that's that is a difficult, and a very torn place to be.
That isn't something that's totally resolved. I like to say that my desire is greater than my fear. Like my desire to keep building bridges, and my desire to keep, because I get so much out of, you know, the relationships. I mean, it's much more. I get a lot more than I give, I feel like, and so that is stronger than my fear. My big hope for this book is that people read it and they are shifted, and that they open their hearts to, and maybe to, narratives of other that they hadn't considered before, and then that inspires them. I mean, like having Just Vision here is such an honor for me. I feel like the work that they are doing is like amazing. They do incredible media work, and you know, I'm just humbled to have them in the room, and it's like, to me, this book is like a small part of the same kind of work, and I would love it to have that effect. But in the end, you know, it's poetry, so like, it also, I want it to stand on its own as a book of poems.